And the problems in our life are not because life is working against us, but because we're working against life. We're trying to row our boat upstream when the stream is actually taking us to a very good place if we would trust it. It's very easy to get trapped into the mazes of intellect where you analyze everything and I'll figure it out. That's one faculty, it's one tool only. All the religions and all the great spiritual teachings say that the seat of true wisdom is the heart, not the brain. In ancient Egypt, when somebody died, they would keep the organs that they felt were sacred. They scooped out and threw away the brain, but they kept the heart. But they believed that the heart was the source of true wisdom.
Guy here. If you ever feel like life is pushing you and you're feeling stuck in fear, or you're trying to control something and you're struggling to surrender, then this episode is definitely for you. Today, my awesome guest is Alan Cohen, who I reached out to and invited him on. He's a beautiful spiritual teacher. He's an author, and his work has helped like tens of thousands of people remember that life isn't meant to be a struggle, you know. So it's a real great podcast today. We talk about what it means to become a spiritual vessel, how to expose the fear that's running our lives, or can be anyway, and how to finally trust the divine flow that's always guiding you, even if it doesn't make sense. How do we get there, right? So it's an empowering and a beautiful invitation back to truth, and I have no doubt you'll enjoy it. Be sure to let me know in the comments below where you are in the world. I'm feeling quite steady today. You probably feel it in my voice. I don't know why I said that. Yeah, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Help me get it out there. It's always deeply appreciated. And of course, if you want to dive into our work, we're around. We're in Tasmania, we're in New Zealand, we're in Australia, we're going to Croatia. Oh my gosh, there's all there. Links are below. It's also some free meditations and stuff to help support you. Much love from me. Enjoy this podcast with Alan. It's beautiful. Alan, welcome to the podcast.
I am absolutely delighted to be with you, Guy.
I haven't had this conversation much on the podcast in terms of A Course in Miracles and different aspects of the teachings, but also I'd love to get to know you a little better as well, if that's okay for us and the listeners. But I want to start the podcast where I always start it, and that is if you were at an intimate dinner table and you sat next to a complete stranger and they said, what do you do for a living, or what are your passions? How would you reply?
I would say I write and teach to inspire people to live their highest authentic self.
What does authentic self mean to you? It's something that we hear often.
Well, there's kind of two levels of it. One is that fundamentally we're spiritual beings, that we're divine, we're whole, immortal, we're creating image and likeness of love, and that's our true self. On another level, we're expressing in the world. So each of us has a talent or a passion, whether it's golfing or teaching or meditating or massaging or writing. And so when we live from our heart and from our honesty, so then we become a vessel for spirit to reach into the world and touch and heal lots of people. So it's being true to your spirit and true to your personality.
Yeah. I know growing up in Wales, myself personally in the valleys of Wales, I wasn't taught any of those principles, and I felt so misaligned. It wasn't funny. And it's like you get this apprenticeship, you get this job, you play rugby, you drink beer, it's just upon you. And there was a part of me screaming inside that, but I couldn't even articulate it, and it's been a journey. And I'm curious, from that vantage point, have you always lived in alignment? Has this been something that's come natural for you? Like, where did your journey begin, if you like?
Yeah, I mean, it's come unusually natural for me. I mean, I was always interested in spirituality. When I was 13, I took up Orthodox Judaism. And then when I was 20, I took off on the spiritual path and did psychedelics and yoga and meditation and all that. So I've always been on a spiritual path. However, I have certainly had my moments of misalignment when I was living in fear or guilt or trying to follow somebody else's prescription for me. And those are always red flags for me to get back on the path. So, I think we all share the same path, that we're here to be true to ourselves and live from our heart and be magnificent. And when we stray from that, like you said, it felt horrible. You're something inside you was screaming for authenticity. And I think it's true of everyone. I think we're all screaming for authenticity, and our job is to find our way to it and express it.
Wow. Where did you grow up living then? Like being exposed to yoga and psychedelics? Because, like, honestly, in the valleys of Wales, there wasn't even a yoga studio. I didn't even know what it was at 20 years
Yeah, I
old. You
know.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, just outside of New York. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
stimulation, a lot of stimulation. But, I think somebody who grew up in a sort of a rural place like you, it almost like it intensified your desire, because how you were living and what you were missing, there was such a large contrast that it created a burn in you to find it. And so in some ways that contrast propelled you even more than somebody who's kind of living close to it.
When did you start to look into then the teachings of A Course in Miracles? When did that come into your presence?
When I was about 30 years old or so, I saw some signs up for it, and I thought, this is tacky, man. Miracles is like waving your hand and making holy ass your rings. I thought it was kind of like a psychic parlor trick. But then I saw this article about it, and this voice said, just get it, just do it. And I sent away for it. It was $30. It was a lot of time for me. At the time, it was a lot of money for me in 1980. But I sent away for it, and I opened the book, and the introduction just jumped out at me like Batman. Remember in Batman movies, they go pow, the big star flash. Well, a voice said, this is real. This is true. You got to do this. And it grabbed my soul. I just had to do it. And I've been doing it for 40 years now plus.
Wow. And for anyone that's not familiar with it, because I have not read the book, I'll be honest, my wife has, but I haven't. Um, how would you outlay it? Why is it such a powerful presentation of information, if you like, that's
Yeah.
changes people's lives continuously?
Yeah. It's, some people call it spiritual psychotherapy. It reaches into your heart and soul and helps you discover the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And through a series of exercises, it helps you peel away what's not it in your life so you can reveal what is it. And the key to the course is the workbook. There are 3 books: a text, a workbook, and a manual for teachers. And the workbook is the key. It offers a lesson a day for 365 days, and starts out very simply, very gently, and it builds and builds. And if you do the lessons each day and practice the exercises, you will achieve just a mental and emotional transformation, where guilt starts to fall away and fear starts to fall away and illusions and false identities start to fall away. And you eventually step into your powerful spiritual being, which, a lot of people love the course for that very reason.
What is a miracle in your definition then?
Well, excuse me. According to the Course in Miracles, a miracle is a shift in perception. It's not necessarily jumping out of a wheelchair. I mean, that's fine. That works too. But it's really the change in mind from fear to love, from guilt to innocence, from separation to connection, from resistance to trust. It's kind of inverting the world as we've been taught it is, and putting us back on solid ground as God created us. It's an inversion of the rules we've been taught and a replacement of them with higher laws.
Oh. And it almost feels like as you spoke of me, there was that discomfort that drove me, that made me more hungry to lean in, which is so true, right? Is that what is needed with the Course in Miracles? Is it people that tend to lean into scope? Because that's, even at the thought of it, I would love to do that book, honestly. I've got a 14-month-old son. I got a 5-year-old daughter. I run events. My life is full, and I think, oh, that's a commitment. but then that's just my perception,
Yeah.
isn't it? I'm just
Yeah. 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 It is, the first part of your question, it is true that we all feel a certain divine discontent, and you have to be, to a certain extent, fed up with your life as it is in order to ask for something higher. Even if you have a good life, there's always something higher. And I would recommend, I have two books, not that I want to sell
it's
those
okay.
books, but a lot of people read my book, A Course in Miracles Made Easy, or Of Course in Miracles. It's a very gentle introduction to the Course. And it kind of like, it lays out all the foundations to the Course. So by the time you get to it, you kind of know what it's about. You're not surprised, and you're ready and motivated to dig in.
Okay, okay, and then go from there. So you spoke as well
Yeah.
then the stripping away of fear in the presence of love. I believe that's how you framed it. So that it's ever present, it's ever
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and it's more of
Yeah.
a letting go of the things that are not serving us, as opposed to.
Yeah. You asked me about, I have two very good stories about this, if I
Please,
may.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, one of my clients, she went through a divorce, and they negotiated it themselves without attorneys. And the final sticking point was their pensions. And during the marriage, they had agreed that if one died, then the other person would get their pension. You both had good pensions from the educational system. And the husband refused to continue that agreement. And they bickered over it for a while. And finally, she thought, well, let me just trust. I will not identify him as the source of my wealth. So she said, okay, I agreed to your terms. The next week, a friend phoned her and said, I was just thinking about you, and I've decided to leave you in my will my entire estate.
What?
And this woman had two homes, an apartment, a car, a pension plan. She was very wealthy. And to me, that was a very clear demonstration that when we give up being motivated by fear and we drop back into trust, then amazing things happen that would have not happened if we continued to fight for our good. We don't need to. Course tells us we don't need to fight for our good. We can just, if we just be ourselves, then all of our good will come to us.
Wow. How do we get to that level of trust then, to really to be able to let go and surrender in something far
Yeah.
greater? Because that can feel terrifying.
Practice, practice, practice. What I do, I do a holistic life coach training, and I use a very simple method. I ask a client, let's say somebody's undecided about a job or a medical treatment or a relationship. I'll ask them, what does the voice of fear say? Well, it says, well, I lost my job. I'm going to be screwed. I'm going to have to sell my house. I'm going to, I'm really hurting, and I'm lost and abandoned. Okay, what would the voice of love, trust, or confidence say? Well, it says that I've always been taken care of. I have skills, and perhaps there's an even better job for me that can help me more than the old one that I lost. Then I ask them, which voice feels better? And they always laugh and say, well, the second one. So it's a daily practice of shining light on the voice of fear and realizing that's never worked and it's not going to start working now. And then holding it up by contrast to the voice of love or trust or confidence, and recognizing that feels so much more real. It goes to a much deeper level. It's so much more soul satisfying, and making a conscious choice to trust the higher voice instead of being at the mercy of the lower voice. And we each have 100 chances a day to practice that. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you want to flip in the bird. Okay, well, that never got me anywhere, but let me just breathe and move on. So, we have 100 choices a day to choose between those two voices.
No, I can just see myself doing that now, and I'm thinking, oh, why are we so reactive then? Why is it that we are so conditioned to react the way we do, even though there's a deeper part of us that knows it's wrong? We're in the spirit of the heat of the moment, and
That's a good question. It's just early emotional programming, watching your parents and teachers and clergy and seeing how they lived and assuming that the fears that were driving them were real and they should drive me too. There's another thing that Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, called race mind. And what he meant was that there's a pool of thought, like a cloud, that really runs most of humanity. And when you tap into that pool of fear, you're subject to all the misgivings and sorrows that that pool engenders. And so it takes a very conscious being to really go within on a daily basis and choose to not subscribe to the pool of weirdness that most people subscribe. I mean, our country is nuts now. In the U.S. now, it's a wacky place to live with a lot of fear and a lot of accusation and anger and blaming and it's like it's super easy. I don't even read the newspaper anymore. I'll see a headline here and there, but just to go into that, it's like going into a cesspool, with a bunch of wackos hating each other and fearing each other. And I refuse to join that. I want to hold my head high and be a model of well-being and peace and healing rather than fear and emotional responsiveness,
Totally.
reactionism.
Do you feel that humanity will get it? Like, are we moving in the right direction? Even though it's projected out there, there's so much noise, like you say. I do my best to avoid that because it's like, it's just too much. It's too overwhelming, And I've got my own
Yeah,
things I
yeah,
need to deal with on a daily basis, let alone try and get pulled into
yeah.
it,
It's a good point.
you
You
know.
know,
But do you feel that we are more and more leaning into love and that we are love thy neighbor and or like, what's your opinion?
well, I have a slightly different take on that. I have a metaphysical teacher who talks about simultaneous parallel realities. And what he says is that, there are many realities that coexist on the planet at the same time. And Jesus said, in my Father's mansion, there are many rooms. That's what he was pointing at. He didn't have metaphysical language in those days. So I believe that there is a reality in which the earth will go on as, pardon the expression, as a shit show, as some people call it, as a really nasty place of suffering. However, I believe there's a certain group of people who are reaching higher, and that there is a more rewarding life on earth available to those who choose it. And those who choose the higher realm will be able to interact with each other as if that's true, even while simultaneously people who still, having a hard time will deal in that realm. So the answer is yes, there is a better life available to those who are willing to choose it. It's a matter of establishing yourself in the consciousness you intend to, and then recognizing all the gifts that consciousness draws
Hmm.
unto you.
Yeah, no, I get it. Thank you. It resonates a lot. Just even on my journey when we spoke off air, when I made the decision, I really want to live in alignment with what my heart was calling forward. My life has
Yeah,
become more
yeah,
beautiful than I could possibly imagine, truly, in so many ways.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and
Beautiful.
that when I tune into that cloud of noise and whatever it is that's out there, it's like that's not my reality, and it's only because I've chosen a different
Yeah,
direction and actually lent into
yeah.
how I feel. So
Beautiful.
I
Yeah.
completely relate, for sure.
And all of your podcasts are actually reinforcing that reality for those who choose to live in it. This is the value of all of us who are doing our spiritual teaching, that you're establishing a vibration that calls people to it who are ready for it, and that reinforces that they can live in it as well. That's a big value of what you're doing, Guy, and others
Yeah,
like
no, I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you. What did the Course in Miracles do to your life then? You spoke about it. You were 30 years old. This book came and it just resonated the moment you opened the book. Like, in terms of its teachings, the trajectory you've been on since, being able to trust into, lean in and surrender. I'd love to know more.
Yeah. it 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 really helped me drop into the deepest place inside myself, and it helped me let go of lots of neurotic programs, letting go of guilt and fear. I grew up Jewish, and the Jews are masters of guilt. They say that the Jews invented guilt and the Catholics perfected it. Really, but every religion has guilt in it. I'm just playing with you. And so it really, I guess the word trust is a big element in my life now that really helped me to trust that I'm on my right path. And if I live in alignment with my values, good things will happen. I used to fight over money. I don't do that anymore. I used to run after women. I don't do that anymore. I used to, it's like a lot of the values that drive most people have fallen away from me. I still have my ups and downs a bit, but for the most part, the stuff that caught me before doesn't catch me now. And if it does, I have tools to work my way out of it more quickly.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. Then, do you believe life is meant to be, I don't want to use the word easy, but a non-struggle? Is it really come down to what we choose? Because when we're in struggle, it it's it's hard, and it's hard to see a way out of it, or a different way through.
Yeah. That's a beautiful question. I think you'd really like the chorus guy because the chorus. There's one of my favorite lines that I quote very often is, "When you have learned how to decide with God, all decisions become as easy as breathing, and you will be led as if along a quiet path in summer."
Wow.
I quote that all the time. And the course says that life can be extremely easy if you're willing to get aligned, with higher power. And it also, excuse me,
That's okay.
one of the big values of the course is that it recreates our perception of an angry, wrathful, punitive God to a God of love and only love. Like it entirely pulls the rug out from any idea that God wants to punish us or hurt us or send us to hell. It just really dissolves that. And it redefines a God of love that wants us to have an easy, peaceful, joyful life, wants our relationships to work, wants us to be healthy, wants us to be abundant. And so, I mean, can you imagine really believing that the universe wants you to be happy? I mean, that was a big shift for me.
So then, if that is the case, then does it come down to every choice point that we make in this is in alignment with that resonance of love? Then that if the universe is a loving
Yeah.
intelligence, and the choices and decisions I'm consciously or unconsciously making on a daily basis are not in alignment with that resonance, therefore keeping me separate from it. Would...
Yeah. I think you got a lot of this already, man. I think, you know, one of my books is called The Tao Made Easy. It's about the Tao Te Ching. And, Lao Tzu said that there's a thing called the Tao, which is the flow of life. And it's a benevolent river. And when you put your boat in that river, it will take you to a beautiful place. And the problems in our life are not because life is working against us, but because we're working against life. We're trying to row our boat upstream when the stream is actually taking us to a very good place if we would trust it. I have another great story, if I might.
Please share them.
So, years ago, I was about to get on a plane on Hawaii to go to California, and the airline announced that the plane would be delayed for 2 hours for mechanical reasons. And I had put in for an upgrade, a first class upgrade, but it was not approved. So I thought, well, let me go to the desk and get in their face. You know that expression, guy? It's a New York expression. Like if you want to get somebody to do something, you get in their face until they give it to you. And I thought, well, let me get in somebody's face to give me an upgrade. But a line had formed before me for people trying to do the same thing. And I thought, do I really want to stand in line for an hour waiting to get in somebody's face and still have them say no, probably. And a voice said to me, Alan, what do you teach? And I thought, well, I teach trust. And it said, well, if you were trusting, what would you do now? So, well, I would step out of line. I'd go to the executive lounge, which I had a pass for. And I'd put my feet up and take a nap and do some emails and just enjoy my 2 hours instead of trying to fight with somebody. So that's exactly what I did. I came back as the plane was boarding. And I hear a voice over the PA, Mr. Cohen, please come to the desk. Okay. Your first class upgrade came through. Cool. Then the lady says, I have no idea where that seat came from. It was not here a minute ago. So she gives me my ticket and I walk away and I realize she's supposed to give me these coupons to pay for your upgrade. So I went back and I said, would you like my coupons? She said, no. The computer here says it's paid for and that's good enough for me. So, well, good enough for me too. And I stepped on, I think I enjoyed that flight more than any other.
I can imagine.
And it's another example, Guy, that trust is a very practical tool. Like, you don't just feel better when you trust, but good things really happen when you trust. So to answer your original question, when I decided not to go into a fighting mode and just to go into a relaxing mode, that was the Tao, the river of life, taking me to the executive lounge. So I had 2 good hours, plus I got my upgrade. So the course is very practical. It invites us to work with the very nitty-gritty, earthy situations in our life to learn that spirit, it really is present and we really are loved and cared for if we're willing to open our arms and receive.
Because there's
good stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
really
and what you share there, Alan, it's like you almost, it's like, because I did recorded a podcast yesterday and he was talking about just being in flow and creation of your reality. And it's like, so in that moment, to help me break it down for myself and listeners, were you attached or not attached? It's like, well, if I don't get the upgrade, I don't care. Or is it that kind of essence, that resonance that you were at? Or was it like, no, in your mind? It's like, no, I'll get the upgrade. I'm just going to trust and sit back. Like,
it was the first part. Like I had to give up my demand that I get the upgrade. And it had to be more fun for me to be peaceful and to be in conflict. And when I gave up the demand, what I wanted came back with no effort on my part whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's a Chinese expression called Wu Wei. And it's kind of like the Tao. It means like the art of effortless living. And that's exactly what we're talking about. It doesn't mean you lay back in bed and wait for lottery checks to flow through your window, because I work hard. I always say I work hard, but I work a lot. I write lots of books and I teach retreats and I do podcasts and I do coach training. I do a lot of stuff, but it's from a sense of joy and creativity and celebration and connection. It's a form of, it's a working ease. It's I'm easy in what I'm doing, even though I'm very active. So I'm not lazy. I'm very active, but there's a sense of lightness about what I do.
No, beautiful.
Usually.
Yeah. We're all humans at the end of the day, isn't it? No, it's interesting because I had an incident the weekend and it's really highlighting what you speak of, because we actually here, our company Live in Flow, we distribute a product called BioGeometry from Egypt. It's a wonderful technology. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, by Dr. Ibrahim Karim. We're very passionate, and we've been distributing them for about 5 years. And we have we use Shopify, a shopping cart, to host the products, and people come and buy them in Australia, and we ship them out. And it got hacked into the weekend. And not only did it get hacked in, they were able to change our passwords. So all of a sudden, the hackers took control over our shopping cart and everything inside, and we were locked out. And there was this moment of like, oh, that's interesting. What do I do now? Because I couldn't get hold of Shopify. They're in Canada, the customer support. I mean, the process is still ongoing, but I felt this conflict in me. My stress levels were starting to boil, thinking, "Oh my God, they're going to go and get into
Yeah.
our accounts." Well, there's all sorts of things your mind wanders to. To
Yeah.
can I just trust the process here and let go?
Yeah.
And I must admit, I was dancing between two for about 6 hours. For about six
Yeah.
hours, but yeah.
Well, I can certainly understand how that would be upsetting. I've had something like that happen. I was worried. So let's do my little exercise, shall we? So what did the voice of, if you're
Please, yeah.
willing, what did the voice of fear say?
The voice of fear said they're gonna get into all your accounts. They're gonna take all your details and start going through. And the next thing I know, it's gonna unwind so much work. I've got to start doing all these problems. I got to start rectifying this. How long is this gonna take? How much money is it gonna cost? How
Yeah.
many people am I gonna upset because they can't order or not receiving the product? It went there with all of it,
Yeah.
right?
That's a very detailed voice of fear. Thank you for your honesty. I know that one. Okay, so let's just flip for a moment. Take a breath if you would. So, in contrast, what would the voice of trust or confidence or vision or love say?
Sorry, cut out a little bit then. Can you repeat that?
What would the voice what would the voice of trust or confidence or vision or love say? What would the higher voice say?
The higher voice in that moment. The first, the first thing that come in is it's only digits on a screen. It's not real.
Mm.
These people are probably in a lot of pain themselves and are doing things that don't
Mm.
resonate with themselves. There is a human on the other end that's suffering somewhere within those decisions that they are making right now. All
Mm.
could be will be rectified. It's not life or death.
Wow. That's also a very compelling
Yeah.
voice. And which voice feels better?
The second by far, even just saying it, I feel it in my
Yeah.
body, right?
Yeah, you dropped in. Yeah. So thank you for doing that. Yeah. So that's the process we all go through often. And if we can just isolate those two voices and drop into the higher one, then that actually greases the process for this to get resolved. Because when you remember that song, Don't Worry, Be
Yeah.
Happy? Bobby Farron said, when every life there is some trouble, but when you worry, you make it double. And so really, if you can drop in at a challenging moment like that and trust, that really it accelerates the process of getting it handled. It's just the way the game
Just the
works.
way it
Yeah.
is, right? And yeah.
I loved your reframes. It's just stuff. It's just numbers. These people must be hurting, and it's going to get handled. Everything gets handled eventually. So, let me just flow with it.
And then it's that. So what you're saying is that it's that resistance that causes the friction to it. And then the moment we're allowing life to flow, you reference the river,
Yeah,
and then trust
yeah,
will be okay.
yeah. It's the fear-based resistance. Remember, and I think Darth Vader used to say, "Resistance is futile." Well, it is. Not that you shouldn't make a stand for politics, whatever's real for you, but it's that angst that I got to fix this. That something's wrong. I have to do it all myself. If I don't fix this, it's not going to work. Not going to work. So it's just that voice is so nasty, guy. It's filled with pressure and guilt and shame and worry and it's just I've gotten to know that voice pretty well, and myself and hundreds of my coaching clients. It's just a vicious voice, and if we could recognize that that's not true. It doesn't come from God. It doesn't come from love. It's just a learned nasty voice that we're all working our way out of step by step, each in our own
Mm.
way.
Is it possible then to fully just live in the presence of love through life?
Yeah. I know I have not achieved that 100%, but I've achieved it more and more.
Mm.
And there are certain enlightened beings who remain. Look at Jesus. I mean, he was crucified. He said, "Forgive them." I mean, that's a pretty high teaching. And in fact, in the Course in Miracles, which I should say was channeled from the voice of Jesus. That Helen Schuckman was a psychologist who opened up, and the voice came, and it was the voice of Jesus. And he talks in the Course about a lot of the stuff that he said during his life, some of which the Bible records accurately and some of which inaccurately. And he says that the only purpose of the crucifixion was to demonstrate that it's possible to love in the face of extreme adversity. That if he could love, even though this horrible thing was done to him, then we can love if somebody cuts us off in traffic, or we get a bill, or we go home for holiday and our mother's nasty to us. It's like those seem quite minor in the face of the kind of love that Jesus manifested. So, and I don't relate to Jesus as a religious figure. I relate to him as a role model, as a master spiritual metaphysical being. That's how I think of him.
How powerful is love then? Because I know there are many people that would see it as a sign of weakness or a sign of not strength.
Yeah. I'll tell you how powerful it is. One of my clients, her father was a war veteran who suffered from PTSD. And when he was prone to emotional outbursts, violent outbursts. When she was 7 years old, he took a gun and lined up his wife and 5 children against the wall. He said, "I'm going to shoot you all, and I'm going to kill myself." True story. And they were all hysterical, except for my client. She said, "Oh, no, you're not, Daddy." And she lunged toward him. She reached to hug him. And in that moment, he dropped the gun, burst into tears, and fell to the floor. And his family surrounded him, trying to comfort him. So you asked the question, how powerful is love? That kind of innocent loving averted a horrible tragedy. Somehow she kept her head on straight, and she was willing to stay in her right mind when everybody else in the room was in the wrong mind. That's the power of love.
Wow. That's incredible. It does make you wonder, in reflection on my life, where the fear can take over in a way where we get a sense of control, or we try and resolve everything from a conditioned mind that thinks it knows it all, to being aware enough or shift the perception enough to be present with a heart and present with that then connection to divine from each moment.
Look at that nice shirt you're wearing. It says heart. It's like,
I know. I'm loud and proud with it these days. You know what I mean?
River and flow retreats. Look at that. You're advertising exactly what we're talking about. And talking about retreats, I do lots of retreats myself. Retreats means you're remembering how to treat yourself. You're coming back to your sense of self-worth and self-kindness, and you're re-treating yourself.
Totally. How does one get out of the trap as well of not going through the motions of it, and actually making it the application? Because I come across a lot of analytical people. They understand the information, they can talk about it, they can pull it apart, they can recite it word for word, but then applying it from here, that they saw in their head, they don't even know that they're not in their heart, but they know it.
Yeah. A friend of mine said, last year I took the biggest step in my life. It was only 18 inches. I moved from my head to my heart. And so it's very easy to get trapped into the mazes of intellect, where you analyze everything and think, I can just reason this out, then I'll figure it out. But that's one faculty, it's one tool only. But as you said, when you drop into the heart, all the religions and all the great spiritual teachings say that the seat of true wisdom is the heart, not the brain. In fact, in ancient Egypt, I know your product is from Egypt, when somebody died, they would keep the organs that they felt were sacred and throw away the other ones. They scooped out and threw away the brain, but they kept the heart. Not that the brain is not valuable, but they believed that the heart was the source of true wisdom. And so I would invite anybody who's struggling with a question or conflict or problem to just, as we did earlier, just take a moment and drop from your head into your heart and ask yourself, what does my heart say about this? What does my inner guide say about this? What does my spirit say about this? And I'm a big fan of asking for guidance. I would say, Spirit, please show me, tell me what I need to know in order to handle this in my best interest and the best interest of everyone. And I've been doing it for many years, Guy, and I've never not gotten an answer. Not always in that moment, but eventually those situations resolve because, spirit's pretty smart, and spirit always guides us. That's what we
I was
really
going to
need.
say, how does that answer present itself? Does it could be like a aha moment in the shower, or like just the thought drops in? Or
Yeah, you could have a shower, but you could be having a conversation with somebody, and they say a word that you needed to hear or mention a phrase. You could see an advertisement for a book or a seminar or a product, and this voice says, "Wow, years ago, I had a partner many years ago, with a lovely partner now, but this was before I had, and we had bought a house together, and we were parting amicably, and we were discussing. I wanted to buy her out, and there was a conflict within me. So this voice said, "Call Charles Black." And Charles Black was a man I had met at a conference just casually the year earlier. I did not know him well, but I just remembered as him a nice guy. The voice said, "Call Charles." So I called him. He said, "Yeah, I got divorced a couple of years ago, and my wife wanted more money than I wanted to give her. But I thought, we were together for 20 years. We had a family. Why fight over money at this point?" So he said, I kind of let her have what she wanted. He said, "Alan," he said, "that money came back to me in so many ways multiplied. Plus, my relationship with my wife and children is stellar. So I did the same thing, and I lost nothing." So, and that, how did I think of Charles Black? Of all the people I knew him just casually, but somehow he was the guy I needed to talk to. And so in that moment, spirit guided me in the perfect direction, and everything worked out. So, I'm not special. Spirit will speak to everybody. Has a spirit. Everybody has an inner knowing. And if you're willing to ask, you will get a good answer.
yeah, we just forget, don't we? That's half the battle.
We get distracted. Our minds are busy with. Somebody said, "Don't sweat the petty stuff, but don't pet the sweaty stuff." In other words, don't be so distracted by minutia that you forget the big picture of your life. It's the big picture of your life that matters. Somebody said, nobody keeps pictures of their office at home. But we do keep pictures of our home and office. So, it's all a matter of choosing your priorities and sticking to them. That's the whole
Yeah,
deal.
totally. It's one thing I want to raise before we wrap up the podcast. And you did a YouTube video called "Be the Mule," and that really
Yeah.
resonated. Do you mind sharing a little bit around that, please?
Yeah, it's I sent out this podcast. At the beginning of the current administration, there's a big turmoil, and a lot of people are really, really angry and upset and fearful about what the administration is doing. And I thought, well, let me see if I can make a contribution. So the theme I gave was, when a farmer has a corral of nervous horses, what he'll do is he will take a mule, which is a very stable, grounded animal, and he will put the mule in with the horses, and the energy of the mule brings the franticness of the horses down. The mule emits a very grounding, healing vibration. So I said, when we're living in a country or a world where a lot of people are going nuts, the best thing we can do is to be the mule and to really be a stabilizing, clarifying, empowering factor rather than diving into the fray with everybody else. So I think, a lot of us have families that are kind of nutty, or workplaces that are kind of nutty, or politics that are kind of nutty. If you can go to your work and be the mule and everybody's being the skittish horse, you'll make a bigger contribution to your workplace than anybody else there, or your family, or your politics, or your country, or your religion. So, we don't have to be the mule at this point. So always do it.
I love it. I love it because I truly feel like one of the struggles was for me was peer pressure. Like it's just people around you and expectations and everyone. It's just piled upon you, and we don't even. And the moment we want to be the mule or we want to stick our head out and go this way, like over here they call it tall poppy syndrome. It's like, oh, look at him over here, let's just cut them back.
What's
Tall
it called
poppy
again?
syndrome. So the moment
Well,
so the
explain.
moment the poppy's head is above the rest, they just want to chop it down.
I see.
You
I
know,
see.
so
Okay,
so you're
got it.
not in with the herd, or
I see. I
yeah.
see. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that everybody is watching your podcast is really on a spiritual path, and we need to know that we're connected. Even if we don't see each other physically, there's a huge community of millions and millions of people who want to hold the light in the dark world. And we do that each in our individual way by meditating, praying, Course in Miracles, yoga, whatever you do, using your products and the stuff that you offer. So we're contributing to our community in ways far more than we recognize. So your peace and my peace is what's needed in the world more than anything else, more than our money, more than our lectures, more than our retreats. They're all good. But, anything that cultivates inner peace is the most powerful contribution to the planet at this moment. Even if it's going to the movie. I was doing a retreat once, and this lady was reading before bedtime in the lobby, and she's reading Emergency Magazine, True Stories of Ambulance Calls. So I said, Josephine, why, why would you come to a spiritual retreat? I mean, stuff like that. It would give me nightmares. She said, well, you know what? She said, I work on the rescue squad, and this gives me really good ideas. So that was her unique method of raising a vibration and coming to peace. And I realized she's making a contribution by finding peace through that method. So I don't get to judge what brings anybody else peace, and nobody gets to judge what brings me peace. If we end up at peace, then we're in the highest service to the planet.
I love it. Absolutely. Last question for you, Alan, is if anyone's to embark on the Course in Miracles, what can they expect? It's a book of three. I'm actually asking for myself here because I'm leaning in thinking I really need to give this a crack. But it's a simple chapter for each day, I believe, with one exercise.
Yeah, there's 3 books. The text is very thick. It's a lot of text. It's kind of abstruse, but the workbook is the key.
Okay.
A lot of people put the course aside because they never make it to the workbook. So I suggest everybody start with a workbook. When you buy the book, there's 3 books pressed together in one volume. And so start with a workbook, do 1 lesson each day, just a little bit, a few minutes each day, and practice the lessons. If you don't understand, if you don't like it, if you have resistance, most people have some resistance in the beginning because it's attempting to undo our painful belief system, and our pain does not want to go away. It wants to assert itself. And so if you just do each lesson one day, it gets easier after lesson 30. I should give you a prediction. Then stay with it, and you will achieve a change of mind. Meanwhile, look through the text. Meanwhile, look through the manual for teachers, just whatever jumps out at you, but let the daily lessons be your guide. That's the real key to it.
And follow it through, obviously. So if you commit, do the year.
Stick with it. You want to be distracted. You want to just The course says, even if you don't understand this lesson, just keep
Right.
doing it. And some of the lessons I really, really love and get totally, some of them I don't quite get, just keep going anyway. Don't
So
stop
don't
now.
get stuck on lesson 33 and think I don't get that, and then just
Well,
I won't do 34 for a while.
go to lesson 34, show what? And all the lessons are taking you to the same place. It's very redundant. So if you don't like one lesson, so what? Forget about it. The next lesson will take you to a better
Huh.
place.
What does your routine look like these days, Alan? Your daily routine, your morning routine, you know.
Yeah, I like to get up early, often before dawn, if possible. I meditate. I can do my own deep meditation, anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, depending on what's going on at the moment. Then I do my Course in Miracles. I'm going to do my writing. I do my creative writing for a couple hours. I go to my office and do my emails and all that kind of stuff. And then I hang out with my family, my dog and my partner, and I go to the beach if I can. And I love to connect with people through my work. I love the. I don't like the business emails, but I like the connection
Yeah,
emails.
that's
That's
the
the fun
joy,
part
isn't it?
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love to do my retreats and my classes. So that's my life at the
Do you
moment.
hold your
And gardening. We'll keep out and garden. I'm
That's
doing a
very
lot of
therapeutic, that's for sure. Do you
yeah.
hold your retreats
Very.
in Hawaii, or do you do them all over?
Yeah, we have a beautiful retreat center on the island of Hawaii, and I do Course in Miracles retreats. I do life coach training retreats. I do medical professional retreats, all that kind of stuff. And people love to come to Hawaii. It's kind of a great combination of beautiful atmosphere and spiritual
Yeah,
training.
well, like I said, we had our honeymoon in Kauai, and it was yeah, beautiful
Yeah.
spot.
Where do you do your retreats, Guy?
We do them currently in here in northern New South Wales of Australia. There's a beautiful eco
Uh-huh.
retreat centre called Gaimea, so we do them there in the
Cool.
rainforest. We do them in Bali, and then we do them in and
Bali,
Croatia
cool.
of all places. Because the third component, there's three of us
Wow.
in Live and Flow, and there's myself, Matt, who's American, and Petra,
Oh,
who's Croatian. So
that's
yeah,
great. Great. I love it. What's the main theme of the retreat? What are you teaching basically?
to to help people really, a lot of trauma seems to be a theme of moving through the trauma and working with the body itself. So we use breath, we use sound, we use movement, we use meditation, and it's really, they're called reconnected. So it's really allowing to
Great.
get that energy flowing again and holding space for people as they move through it. And but what blows me away and uh, is just, and you would see it all the time, is when people come together that actually from the heart. Nobody talks about what they do for a living
Yeah.
or how much money they earn or jobs.
Yeah.
People just get to know people the right way, and those
Yeah.
connections and bonds, that form out of it
Yeah.
is just
I
phenomenal.
agree. Yeah. Just the sense of fellowship and connection and mutual support, that's transformational,
Yes,
isn't it?
because when you're in a room with non-judgment and people are genuinely in their hearts and holding space
Yeah.
for each other, it's
Yeah.
you wonder why the world is like, why can't everybody know about this, or the world's not living from this place.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Yeah. Well, we're doing the same thing. It's in our own way. We're brothers from another mother. So let's carry on,
Absolutely.
shall
And just for everyone listening, there'll be links in the show notes below for you, Alan. But where can they go? Where can we send them to? They want to check out your books and your work.
Yeah, alancohen.com, AlanCohen.com.
Beautiful. Thank you. And any last words? Anything you want to leave the listeners to ponder on before we wrap things up?
I think we said it all. I think that we dropped a lot of golden nuggets, and I think if any of our listeners got just one good idea from what we shared, and just you work with that and take it in and make it real in your life, I think it can take you all the way
Yeah,
home.
beautiful. Alan, it's been such a joy getting to know you on the podcast, mate. I really appreciate your time
Amen,
and
brother.
everything you do.
Be
Thank you.
well.
Thank you so much.